There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that wishing for the light does nothing to change the darkness they stand in. Many spend their days praying for easier paths, praying for gentler winds, praying for someone to come and save them from the weight of their own shadows. But the truth, as Machiavelli would argue, is that power does not come to those who wait for conditions to improve. Power comes to those who learn to walk through the night with steady steps and open eyes. The world does not rearrange itself to suit your fears or soften itself to comfort your insecurities. Life presents itself as it is, raw, unpolished, indifferent, and the person who tries to negotiate with that indifference ends up defeated. The secret is not to demand light from the darkness, but to understand its structure, its rhythm, its rules. When you understand the dark, you learn where to place your feet, how to preserve your strength, and how to build advantage where others see only danger. To rule the dark is to stop pleading for mercy and start learning the language of shadows. Most people react to difficulty the way a child reacts to thunder. They cover their ears, shut their eyes, and hope someone stronger will reassure them. But adulthood, especially the kind Machiavelli speaks about, demands a far different posture. Hardship is not a storm that passes. It is the climate in which human greatness is forged. When you wish only for calm, you become weak in the presence of chaos. But when you train yourself to navigate chaos, calm becomes a luxury rather than a necessity. This is why rulers, innovators, and thinkers throughout history learned to make decisions in the dark, not because they enjoyed uncertainty, but because reality rarely provides perfect visibility. To rule the dark is to accept that fear is a compass, not a prison. It points to areas of growth, opportunities for dominance, and hidden corridors of advantage. When others freeze, you move. When others doubt, you act. Darkness becomes your domain not through arrogance, but through discipline, through the willingness to explore what others refuse even to confront. This is how power is born, in the territories abandoned by the fearful. People misunderstand the nature of darkness. They think it is an enemy to be fought, resisted, or eliminated. But darkness is simply everything you have not yet mastered. Every unknown skill, every unexplored possibility, every part of yourself you've ignored because the mirror was too harsh. The reason so many fail to rise is that they spend their energy chasing an idealized version of life, a future washed in permanent sunlight. They believe happiness comes when all problems disappear, when the world becomes kind, when every obstacle conveniently melts away. But Machiavelli teaches us that happiness is not a gift from circumstances, it is a product of control. Control comes from understanding the terrain, especially the parts that frighten you. Instead of wishing for light, you must learn to see in dimness, to attune your senses to subtle cues, to read intentions behind silence. Darkness sharpens perception, because it forces you to pay attention. When you abandon the fantasy of ease and instead adapt to difficulty, you discover a new kind of vision, one that does not depend on illumination but on awareness. This vision is the beginning of sovereignty. Every person has a hidden self that they reveal only in darkness. Their doubts, their cravings, their insecurities, their private ambitions. Most try to escape this inner night by distracting themselves with noise, entertainment, or shallow desires. But the one who wishes to rule must not run from this inner darkness. They must confront it with ruthless honesty. Machiavelli would remind you that a ruler who cannot govern themselves cannot govern anything else. And governing yourself begins with acknowledging the parts of you that you fear. The dark reveals your internal inconsistencies, the weaknesses you pretend you don't have, the desires you deny, the bitterness you try to bury. To rule the dark is to bring structure to the chaos inside you, transforming raw emotion into strategy, turning confusion into clarity. When you stop fearing your own shadows, external shadows lose their power over you. You become capable of seeing through manipulation, resisting seduction, and acting with intention. The world stops being a threat and becomes a board on which you move deliberately, no longer a passive piece but a player with purpose. It is a mistake to believe that darkness is merely a place of suffering. Darkness is also a place of opportunity. Many victories are prepared in silence long before they appear in the light. Every great strategist knows that what is hidden is often more powerful than what is visible. While others are distracted by appearances, the wise use obscurity to build strength. In darkness, you can refine skills without interruption, study opponents without being noticed, and develop resilience without external judgment. This is why hardships, setbacks, and failures are not curses but concealment. They hide your development from the world until the moment you are strong enough to reveal yourself. A person who waits for perfect conditions forfeits their destiny to circumstances. But the one who embraces imperfect conditions learns to shape circumstances. Darkness is the workshop of transformation, the arena where you train without applause, where you stretch yourself without witnesses. Machiavelli would say that the wise ruler never wastes a difficult season. They use it to prepare a future that others cannot anticipate. Many people confuse strength with visibility. They believe power is something you show, something others must constantly see to respect. But true strength grows in the absence of recognition. Like a seed beneath the soil, unseen yet unstoppable, your potential expands in darkness. When you detach from the need for approval, you begin to build a kind of authority that is internal and unshakable. Machiavelli understood that rulers who depend on admiration are fragile because admiration is temporary and easily manipulated. But rulers who depend on discipline cannot be overthrown by external opinion. To rule the dark is to develop independence from applause, to become so grounded in your mission that praise and criticism lose their influence. You stop moving for attention and start moving for purpose. Ironically, this invisible strength eventually becomes undeniable, for nothing is more intimidating than a person whose power comes from within. When the light eventually arrives, it does not create your greatness. It merely reveals what the darkness built. The world is full of people waiting for motivation, waiting for inspiration, waiting for a sign that now is the time to act. But darkness offers no signs. It offers only silence, and silence scares those who do not know how to command themselves. To rule the dark is to stop waiting for emotional permission. You do not need to feel ready. You need to be willing. Action taken in uncertainty builds a rare kind of courage, the courage to create momentum where none exists. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but boldness is not loud. It is the quiet decision to move forward even when everything inside you whispers doubt. When you learn to act without brighter conditions, you unlock a capacity that most never touch. The dark becomes less of a trap and more of a proving ground. Your steps become confident not because the path is clear, but because your character is strong. You realize at last that control is not found in waiting for clarity, but in generating clarity through consistent movement. If you truly wish to rule the dark, you must first understand that light and darkness are not enemies. They are stages. Light reveals what you have achieved. Darkness reveals what you have yet to become. Most people chase the light because it allows them to hide their weaknesses behind accomplishments. But the dark exposes everything, and that exposure terrifies them. Yet there is freedom in being stripped of illusions. In darkness, you cannot pretend to be stronger than you are, and so you are forced to become stronger. This is why the dark is the birthplace of transformation. It does not flatter you, it confronts you. It demands growth, not performance. Machiavelli believed that excellence is forged through reality, not fantasy, and the dark is reality in its rawest form. When you embrace it, you no longer seek comfort. You seek capability. You stop asking for an easier life and start demanding a stronger version of yourself. This shift in mindset is the first step toward becoming a ruler of your own destiny. Once you learn to navigate darkness internally, the next challenge is to understand darkness externally, the world's unpredictability, cruelty, and hidden motives. Machiavelli observed that people are driven by self-interest far more than they admit. The wise do not condemn this truth. They adapt to it. To rule the dark is to recognize that human beings act according to incentives, fears, and desires, not ideals. When you understand this, disappointment loses its sting. You stop expecting loyalty from the disloyal, generosity from the selfish, or fairness from the unfair. Instead, you learn to predict behavior based on what people value and what they fear. This gives you strategic clarity. You no longer walk blindly, hoping the world will be kind. You walk knowingly, aware of its patterns. And when you see the world clearly, the darkness becomes less chaotic. It becomes a map of human nature. Complicated, but readable to those who refuse to look away. There is a certain power in being underestimated. In darkness, people often assume you are weak simply because they cannot see your preparations. This is an advantage, not an insult. Machiavelli often wrote of the value in appearing simple while being strategic, appearing passive while planning, appearing harmless while strengthening. When the world does not expect anything from you, it does not guard itself against you. This gives you the space to grow undetected. Many rise too quickly into the light and become targets before they have developed resilience. But the one who rises quietly, who builds without broadcasting, who sharpens themselves away from attention, becomes a force that cannot be easily dismantled. When the light finally shines upon them, it is too late for the world to stop what the dark has already established. To rule the dark is to master timing, the discipline to stay hidden until your strength is undeniable, and the wisdom to reveal yourself only when the moment serves your purpose. Fear thrives in darkness, not because darkness is dangerous, but because darkness removes the illusion of control. People crave predictability. They want to know what will happen, when, and how, but life rarely grants such certainty. Machiavelli understood that unpredictable environments reward those who can adapt faster than others. When you learn to be comfortable without guarantees, fear loses its power over you. You stop waiting for perfect outcomes and begin shaping outcomes from imperfect circumstances. This adaptability is the core of what it means to rule the dark. When others panic, you analyze. When others freeze, you maneuver. When others complain, you strategize. Over time, your calmness becomes an armor, your flexibility a weapon. The world does not become less chaotic, but your relationship with chaos changes. You begin to see possibilities where others see traps. The darkness becomes not a void, but a landscape full of moves that only a prepared mind can recognize. In dark times, people reveal their true values. Some cling to comfort, abandoning their principles for temporary relief. Others betray, manipulate, or retreat into passivity. But those who rule the dark understand that adversity is the most honest judge of character. Machiavelli believed that the measure of a person is not how they behave in safety, but how they behave under pressure. When you remain loyal to your purpose even in darkness, you become someone others quietly fear, not because you are ruthless, but because you are unwavering. People can sense when someone will not be easily broken. This steadiness attracts allies who respect discipline and repels those who thrive on chaos. Over time, your reputation becomes a form of protection. Even in darkness, your name carries weight because you have demonstrated consistency in conditions where most would falter. You become a presence others cannot ignore, not because you seek attention, but because resilience is unmistakable. A common mistake people make is assuming that darkness is temporary, a season that will pass quickly. But darkness often lingers. Projects fail, relationships crack, finances collapse, illness arrives, betrayals unfold. Life does not move according to our preferred timeline. If you wait for the light before you take action, you will remain still for years. To rule the dark is to create movement even when the environment is stagnant. It means finding opportunities within limitations, not beyond them. Machiavelli would argue that a ruler who relies on favorable conditions is destined to fall when conditions change, but a ruler who learns to operate in uncertainty becomes untouchable. They do not break when resources are scarce. They innovate. They do not despair when support is absent. They develop independence. They do not collapse when outcomes seem unlikely. They persist. This is strength that does not depend on circumstance. A strength earned in the dark, refined in pressure, and revealed only through endurance. Those who wish to rule the dark must also learn the art of disciplined emotion. Darkness tends to amplify feelings. Fear becomes louder, anger sharper, sadness heavier. If you allow these emotions to dominate your decisions, the darkness will rule you instead. Machiavelli understood that emotion is a dangerous advisor. It can inspire great action, but also blind you to strategic truth. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to master it. When you feel fear, you ask what it is teaching you. When you feel anger, you channel it into productive movement. When you feel uncertainty, you sharpen your awareness rather than surrender to paralysis. This emotional discipline becomes your anchor. It allows you to remain stable when everything around you seems to fall apart. Over time, you learn that ruling the dark is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally literate. You learn to distinguish between impulses that sabotage you and signals that guide you. This is how you develop leadership over yourself, which is the foundation of leadership over anything else. The dark often disrupts your plans. Even the most carefully mapped journey can collapse with one unexpected event. But Machiavelli insists that the wise ruler plans for volatility, not stability. You cannot control everything, but you can control your adaptability. Every setback becomes a lesson, every failure a redirection, every disappointment an opportunity to reassess. When you learn to reinterpret adversity rather than resist it, you turn the dark into a strategist rather than an enemy. You begin to anticipate alternative routes, backup strategies, and countermoves. This does not eliminate difficulty, but it gives you leverage. While others view darkness as the end, you see it as an opening, a place where creativity, resilience, and cunning can thrive. This mindset transforms desperation into determination. You stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and start asking, "How do I use this?" Such thinking elevates you above the average person who collapses at the first sign of trouble. You become a builder within the ruins, a strategist within the shadows. To rule the dark, you must also learn the value of solitude. Darkness often isolates you, not because you are unworthy of company, but because transformation rarely happens in crowded rooms. Solitude teaches you to trust your own mind, to rely on your own judgment, and to cultivate a relationship with yourself that is grounded in clarity rather than distraction. Machiavelli knew that rulers often stand alone, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. In solitude, you can hear your true thoughts, unfiltered by the expectations of others. You can reflect on your decisions, examine your motives, refine your strategies. You can become honest with yourself in ways crowds never allow. Solitude becomes a sanctuary where you sharpen the tools you will later use in the world. Many fear being alone because the silence exposes their internal disorder. But the one who embraces solitude gains an inner fortress, a place of stability that darkness cannot penetrate. From this, confidence grows, not the loud confidence of pride, but the quiet confidence of self-trust. Once you have mastered yourself in darkness, the world changes its relationship with you. People sense a shift, a groundedness, a certainty, a lack of desperation. You become someone who does not beg for validation, who does not chase approval, who does not crumble when conditions turn harsh. Machiavelli believed that rulers earn respect not through charm but through consistency and capability. When you rule the dark within you, this consistency becomes your signature. You no longer react emotionally to every challenge because you have practiced moving through uncertainty. This composure influences how others treat you. They take your words more seriously. They reconsider their attempts to manipulate you. They recognize in you a solidity that cannot be easily moved. Darkness sharpens your character so deeply that the light cannot distort it. You are the same in chaos and in calm, and that steadiness becomes an uncommon form of power. Most people try to escape darkness by pretending everything is fine. They smile through crises, they hide their struggles. They pretend to have control even when they feel lost. But pretending is not ruling. It is running. Machiavelli warned against leaders who relied on illusions because illusions collapse at the first blow. True authority requires acknowledging reality, even when reality is unpleasant. When you face your circumstances without denial, you gain the ability to shape them. You stop wasting energy maintaining appearances and start using that energy to create actual progress. Darkness becomes less frightening when you stop lying to yourself about it. You learn to say, "This is where I am. This is what I have. This is what I must do." From this honesty, clarity emerges. And clarity is the foundation upon which all strategic action is built. Those who rule the dark do not hide from truth. They use truth as a weapon. The ability to rule the dark also depends on your capacity to endure discomfort. Growth requires pressure, and pressure is rarely pleasant. But Machiavelli understood that comfort is the enemy of ambition. People who fall in love with comfort become prisoners of their own softness. They avoid challenges, avoid risk, avoid anything that threatens their sense of ease. Yet everything they claim to want, power, respect, success, greatness, exists on the other side of discomfort. When you welcome discomfort instead of avoiding it, you unlock a resilience that becomes unbreakable. You learn that pain is a teacher, not a villain. Every difficult moment refines a part of you that would otherwise remain underdeveloped. You stop seeking a painless life and start seeking a powerful life. And power does not grow under soft conditions. It grows in the dark, under weight, under tension, under challenge. When you accept this, you stop wishing for easier circumstances and start becoming a stronger human being. A surprising truth emerges when you rule the dark. You develop compassion, not pity, not weakness, compassion. Because once you have endured your own shadows, you recognize the shadows in others. You understand that people are often driven by fears they cannot name, by wounds they never healed, by insecurities they try desperately to hide. Machiavelli is often misinterpreted as cold, but he understood human nature deeply. To rule effectively, you must grasp why people do what they do. Darkness gives you this insight. It teaches you to see motives behind behavior, pain behind anger, confusion behind apathy. This understanding makes you wiser, not softer. You learn when to be firm, when to be patient, when to confront, and when to guide. The dark teaches you the complexity of human nature, and this knowledge becomes a source of influence. People follow those who understand them, even in silence. Eventually, you discover that ruling the dark was never about domination. It was about transformation. The darkness you feared becomes the crucible that forged your strength. You look back and realize that every setback sharpened your resolve, every betrayal refined your discernment, every hardship strengthened your character. Machiavelli argued that fate favors those who seize control of themselves before they attempt to control anything else. By ruling your own darkness, you develop the internal infrastructure required to navigate the external world with competence. You become someone who can withstand chaos without collapsing, someone who can make decisions without panic, someone who can stay centered even when the ground shakes. This is real power, not the kind that depends on control over others, but the kind that begins with control over your own state of being. When you reach this stage, the light no longer fascinates you the way it once did. You do not seek attention, applause, or recognition. You create in silence, move in silence, grow in silence. The light becomes a place of expression, not validation. You do not step into the spotlight because you need it. You step into it only when it serves your purpose. This is the opposite of how most people live. They chase visibility in hopes that it will make them feel significant. But significance is built long before visibility appears, and it is built in darkness. You now understand this. The dark is no longer a place of fear, but a place of mastery. You enter and exit it with ease, drawing strength from its silence. And because of this, you cannot be forced into panic or insecurity. You have become the kind of person who moves with intention, not desperation. At some point, you realize that the dark did not diminish you. It revealed you. The person you were before could not have handled the life that is now unfolding before you. The darkness stripped you of illusions, of weakness, of dependency, of hesitation. It carved you from the inside out, shaping a more resilient, more intelligent, more strategic version of yourself. Machiavelli believed that a ruler must be both lion and fox, strong enough to confront force, clever enough to avoid traps. Darkness trained you in both. It taught you strength through adversity and cleverness through survival. Now you carry a quiet authority, a confidence that does not shout but resonates. People sense it even if they cannot name it. This is what happens when you stop wishing for light and start mastering the night. You become someone who does not merely survive difficulty, you rule it. In the end, ruling the dark is about reclaiming your agency. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve and begin improving yourself. You stop wishing for a path without obstacles and start becoming someone who thrives despite them. The dark ceases to be a barrier and becomes a landscape, a terrain you navigate with intelligence, courage, and resilience. You realize that the light was never the source of power. It was merely the stage upon which power is displayed. The true source of strength, discipline, strategy, and identity was always found in the shadows. And so, when others wait anxiously for dawn, you move confidently in the night, knowing that you do not need the world to brighten for you to advance. You have learned the ultimate Machiavellian truth. To rule the dark is to rule yourself, and to rule yourself is to rule your destiny. This is the Golden Circle Philosophy channel. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching.